dealers come out. Everybody is outside till the killers come out. You ain't eating, you just act full. I'm impactful. Dozen funerals in a month, I got that pull. I will give it to niggas in all rap forms. Ignatius out right now on all platforms.
There are a lot of people who have no idea about the destructive history Black people have gone through in this country. Because unless you have parents or friends and family who teach the individual struggle that Blacks have had to go through in America, a lot of our history gets glossed over. A lot of it. There are grown adults right now that have no idea that in almost every major state, Black people would come together and create their own cities that was thriving and doing well. And then all of a sudden, racist ass white people, KKK and others, would come tear down and burn down their city and suffer no penalty. No penalty. Recently, the Tulsa massacres became famous because they was portrayed in TV shows. It was a big push for it during the George Floyd protests. And we have 2 survivors from the Tulsa massacres. Now, remember, the Tulsa massacres happened in 1921. So these survivors were young children when this shit happened, when their whole cities and establishments got burned down. Hold on. I got somebody coming in, ladies and gentlemen. Some of you guys have deemed him your favorite online philosopher. But others of you know this man simply as the living legend. Larry is in the building. What's up, Larry?
What's going on, man? How you feeling?
I can't call it, man. How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm hanging in there. Just trying to do it. You know how it is.
Yeah, well, Larry, I got some sad. The first story we covering is just very sad. And the Tulsa massacre, we have 2 surviving members, Larry, who just got whapped down in the Oklahoma Supreme Court again in terms of getting reparations for what that did to them and their family's legacy and the city's legacy, Larry. When we watch this video, Larry, first of all, let me show you these 2 survivors, okay? You got Viola and you got Mr. Ellis. The Tulsa massacres happened in 1921. So obviously, if you know how to do any math, you know that these 2 individuals are above the age of 100. I can only imagine the stories they have. But they've been in a court battle for years trying to get some form of reparations for what they went through. And every single time they keep getting whapped down. So Larry, I got a video I want you to listen to and the audience to listen to see more of the hypocrisy of America, more of why I am fully on board. Because Larry, you remember this. I used to not be on board with Black people getting reparations. And you have seen me evolve through learning history, through learning all these other groups of people that got fucking reparations from America, except for Black people. This video is going to highlight another one of those stark differences, and we'll talk about it when we get back. Take a listen to this.
I have some terrible news. The Oklahoma Supreme Court has ruled 8-1, affirming a lower court's ruling that the survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre will get $0, that they do not qualify for any compensation whatsoever. We just surpassed the 103-year anniversary of that horrific act of terrorism. 2 Tulsa Race Massacre survivors are still alive and well, and this was the final opportunity to get any semblance of justice or accountability or reparations or restitution. And adding to this horrific injustice is the fact that Oklahoma City suffered a horrific act of terrorism in 1995, the Oklahoma City bombing. Some of you are old enough to remember it. I know I sure am. And the families of the Oklahoma City bombing got $50 million for being survivors of terrorism and mass violence. But the Tulsa Race Massacre survivors, who are all Black, who are victims of the similar type of white supremacist, racist violence and terrorism, get nothing. This is yet another reminder that the system is not broken. It is working exactly as it is intended, because a system cannot fail those it was never meant to protect in the first place.
Larry, I'm going to say this. Before you got up here, I was reminding people that unless you have someone who's a historian in your family that understands the history Black people have went through, your normal school books are not going to teach you the horrendous shit Black people have been through in this country. And I was telling the audience that pretty much every state has had a community where Black people thrived and did well, only to see those communities get torn down by white people that was angry and upset. It happened here in North Carolina in Wilmington. One of the most famous ones is the Tulsa, Oklahoma situation that we're talking about. It's Black Wall Street. Larry, I'm going to tell you why I believe that their Supreme Court and all the other courts keep knocking this shit down. I think the biggest reason why they don't want to do this is because you would open it up for other cases and basically go down the road of Black people having to get reparations. And I believe there is a biting clause that whenever these issues come up, you whap that shit down. Because Larry, Tulsa's not the only place that tried to sue for this. Families from Wilmington tried to sue. North Carolina, you get nothing. There was a city in New York that had a similar situation. You get nothing. But as that video highlighted, when this shit happens to white people, they get paid. So Larry, talk to me about how you feel about this situation. And just my heart goes out to these survivors and the mental health, physical health, and all the stuff they've had to endure for 100 years.
Yeah, I'm not in the least bit surprised. I mean, I don't think they ever planned on paying out, and at the age that they currently are, I'm assuming they probably just figure, you know what, we can probably delay or reject this enough to keep. And eventually, they'll just die off, and then nobody will have any standing to bring any other cases. And
right,
you know, I mean, but the guy said it in the video. He said it pretty much just wrapped it up. He was like, this is a system that was not designed to protect us. And in a lot of ways, the system was designed to harm us and to subjugate us. And, you know, I know we go through these periods of time where people start to become aware of certain, you know, tidbits in history, not to call the Oklahoma, you know, riots, the Tulsa riots a tidbit, but in the larger scheme of things throughout the world, it is a tidbit. And as you become aware of these things, people become outraged, and there's these movements to try and bring some sort of reconciliation or some justice. And the reality of it is, it's just normally not going to happen. I mean, you look at the woman that falsely accused, you know, what was it, Emmett Till, and got him killed, and nothing happened to her. Nothing's going to happen to any of these people. They're not going to give them any money. The white people that do terrible stuff that are found out later, nothing's going to happen to them. Either they're going to be dead by the time anybody decides to do anything, or they're going to be so old they're going to say, oh, it doesn't make any sense to put them in jail. We're just going to, we'll just basically forget about it. I mean, it is our system, and we can change it. We can try and change it, but you know, it means putting people in power. It means Black folks can't sit around up there talking about, I don't like the system, I'm not voting. You need to take your butt out there and vote, even if your choices are between worse and worser.
Yes.
Know?
Yes.
You just have to. I mean, I have been voting my entire adult life, and with the exception of maybe one time, I feel like I have always voted the lesser of two evils. And that's just the way it is in this country. But if you're not willing to vote, then you can't really expect any change to happen, because change only comes in one of two ways. It either comes because you put people in political power, which takes time and money and voting, or because of violence. I mean, those are only two ways that really change anything in this country.
Yeah.
So,
and unfortunately, when Larry speaks to violence, what have we seen the history of this country to be? Most of the time when Black people do protests, we peaceful, we might incite violence upon us.
Right.
And then we see that even when that happens, we wind up still being the ones to go to fucking jail. And then we fast forward to the riots on the Capitol when Trump lied and led them people down there to storm the Capitol, tear it up, and just destroy it. It was 4,000 people that did that shit, and only Larry, and I say only 400 members have been convicted, and of that 400, less than half of them have done any jail time. So that just goes to show you, you're trying to sit here and tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you could try to go to war if you want to, but it's going to be disproportionately against us to do that. It's going to be, and you have to use the ballot box. Too many of our people have died. I know it's frustrating, and I know it takes time. God, look, these two know more than anybody else about the frustrating process of voting. They've been living, look at this right here. One of them is 109 years old, and the man is 102, and they've had the chance to live all these years to see small increments of quote-unquote progress for Black people. And even having seen that progress, the progress that they really want that could directly affect them, they still haven't seen it and probably not going to see it. But they have been voting as long as they could vote, as long as they can vote. And you guys have got to do the same thing too. And that situation is very cumbersome. And it's not just them, Larry, that feel the pain, but in all these other cities where we've had these type of massacres of Black communities, Larry, why has no one been convicted of any of this shit? In the massacre in Tulsa, there was some 800 Black people that died. Nobody was convicted of crimes. Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody.
I mean, it's just the reality of it is that this is the way the system is, and it's the way it's going to be. I mean, you don't even have to look at you know, 100 years ago. You can look at just a couple years ago in Charlottesville, Virginia, here, not far from where I live. I mean, you had what was essentially turned out to be a race riot, but between racist and non-racist, and the racists were out there. They had guns. They were shooting Black people in the parking lots. They were chasing them around. There were scenes where they were showing white people shooting at Black people literally 5 feet away from the police, and the police did not even move to make an arrest, to take out their gun, to defend. Nothing. They just allowed people to be shot. And the only person that was convicted or charged with anything was that white man who ran down that woman in the crowd.
Girl.
The white woman.
Girl,
He killed a blonde white lady, and as a consequence, he got a conviction. But if that had been someone who looked like me, if that had been a Black woman, they probably would have made some excuse that he was in fear for his life and he was just trying to get away and all the other shenanigans that they do. It was because he ran down a white lady.
Pretty much.
So you don't need to go back 100 years. You don't even need to go back 10 years or 5 years. And it happens. I mean, you look at these states now where these Republican lawmakers have passed laws saying that it's okay to run down protesters if they're blocking a highway.
He's speaking of Florida. He's speaking of Florida.
You can kill somebody if someone's protesting and they're blocking a highway. You can run them down and kill them. They're trying to say, and it's justified. I mean, this is asinine. What? You're late for work and someone's protesting so that you have the right to run them down? That's just craziness. Now, I get it. It's an inconvenience. No one likes being stuck in traffic. It sucks. It sucks even more if you're about to be late to work for the 5th time and about to get fired. I get it. That sucks. But that does not give you the right to kill someone. And we have these Republican lawmakers that are passing laws saying that very thing, that you can do that. It's just our society in a lot of ways is just getting worse and worse. It's very, very polarized. I think if Donald Trump wins this election, and it's not a foregone conclusion that Biden's going to win, even though a lot of people would like to make you think that, make you believe like, oh, this is crazy, no one's going to elect a convicted felon. Well, let's not forget that all these Republicans were sitting around talking about when people would ask them directly, are you going to support him and vote for him? And they would say, well, if he's convicted, then no, then we need to look for a new candidate. If he's convicted, we're not going to vote for a convicted felon. Now that he's been convicted, all of them are sitting around with the same song talking about this is a travesty of justice. This is they've been weaponizing the DOJ. All this stuff that basically they're just trying to say that they're going to vote for him regardless. And I think if he gets elected, things are going to get a lot worse for Black people, because a lot of the protections that we've had on the federal level are going to go away. And even if they don't go away, there's not going to be any enforcement. And I think we're going to be responsible for protecting ourselves and our own communities. And, you know, like some white folks did when Trump got elected the first time, some of them just simply said, I'm just leaving the country, and they left. I think more will leave. I think we need to make sure that we have the ability to either defend ourselves or to be out. I mean, it's either fight or flight, and just doing nothing, I don't think is going to cut it this time. I don't think we're going to be safe.
Speaking of the different levers of protection and losing rights, Larry, I've always told people the most important branch of our government is the Supreme Court, because at the end of the day, what they say goes. The only thing you can do is if they come down with a ruling that takes away rights, you've got to somehow or another get enough people in the House and the Senate and the right president to make a law and pass it.
Right.
And because it's so hard to get that, and they know that shit, at the end of the day, basically what the Supreme Court says is the law of the land, honestly. And right now, there is absolutely no denying that our Supreme Court is as rigged as this shit has ever been. Like, they're not even hiding it. And here we are. I got a video where we've had two justices on the hot seat, Alito and Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas for taking all this bribery money from right-wing, rich Republican activists. And now we've got Alito throwing his wife under the bus for a flag situation with his neighbor. And then we've been calling for some kind of justice. These people need to recuse themselves because they're showing their bias. Alito comes out and said,